high, and Latin American countries may not be as important for India's trade like our neighbors or traditional trading partners. But this reminds me of a story of a guy who goes to an astrologer, and the astrologer looks at his hand and says, "You should be father of 2 children." He gets angry. What do you mean? I am a father of 5 children. So the astrologer looks at him and says, "That is what you think." So, I would not let you think about Latin America. I would let some numbers speak for them. Last year, India exported $273 million to Honduras, 15,000 kilometers away, 10 million population, remote area. You have to do 2 transshipments. This is more than our exports to Cambodia, $250 million. It's 2,000 kilometers close by. It's in our natural cultural backyard. It is only $230 million, and they have one population, 16 million. Our exports to Guatemala, a remote country in Central America, was $466 million, which is more than our exports to Kazakhstan, which is double the population and it's close. Our exports to Brazil last year was $9.9 billion, touching 10 billion. Now, this is more than our exports to Japan, to France, Italy, or Thailand, Nepal, or Sri Lanka. Our exports to Chile is $1.2 billion. Our exports to Colombia was $1.4 billion. This is much more than our exports to Myanmar or some other traditional trading partners. Now, the biggest item of our exports was vehicles, $4.3 billion. Latin America accounts for 1/3 of the global exports of vehicles from India, cars and motorcycles. The number 1 destination for India's motorcycle exports last year was Colombia, $308 million. Mexico is the number 2 destination globally for India's car exports, almost $1 billion. India is the second largest supplier of motorcycles to Latin America. We supplied over $4 billion of chemicals to Latin America and $1.5 billion of pharmaceuticals. India was the 5th largest supplier of pharmaceuticals to Latin America. We were number 1 in the case of Nicaragua and number 2 in the case of Guatemala. Now, these numbers are not just 1 year wonder of 22-23. This is an emerging trend in the last 5-6 years. Our exports last year were $22 billion. But that is nothing in comparison to the overall imports of Latin America, which was $1.5 trillion. So our exports were just 1.6% of the total imports of Latin America. And it is a large market of 600 million people with a combined GDP of $6 trillion, with an average per capita income of about $10,000. Which is almost 3 times that of India. So, we can easily take our $22 billion of exports to $50 billion in the next 5 years. It's not difficult. In the last few years, Indian companies have gone to Latin America for projects. There is a company from Mumbai, you might have heard, Kalpataru Power Transmission Limited. They got a single largest EPC contract in Chile valued at $431 million. It is the largest EPC contract got by an Indian company in the region. And this company hasn't got that big an order even in India. They also got contracts in Brazil, Colombia, and Suriname. They have a total portfolio of $650 million of EPC contracts in power transmission lines. There's a company called Sterling and Wilson from Shapoorji Pallonji. They have done $500 million worth of solar energy projects in South America. There is a company called Sterlite from Vedanta. They have got contracts worth $2 billion in Brazil alone. And they do it on a BOT model. And we are also doing well in your area in service exports. He's from the software. Last year, India's IT services exports to the region is around $2 billion. There are about 50 Indian IT companies, BPOs and KPOs, which are there throughout Latin. And out of this $2 billion, TCS alone got about $1 billion. Indian IT companies employ about 60,000 Latin American staff in their operations. And our companies have gone investing also. We have invested about $10 billion across Latin America. I'll just give you two examples of the investors. One is a company called UPL, United Phosphorus Limited. This is the largest Indian agrochemical company. UPL is the largest Indian agrochemical company. But today, they do more business in Brazil than in India. They do about $1.7 billion in Brazil. In India, they do less than $1 billion. Across Latin America, they do over $2 billion. There's a company called Motherson in Noida, in auto parts. This company has 18 plants, auto parts manufacturing plants in Mexico, 7 in Brazil, 1 in Colombia. They supply components and parts to OEMs. Their turnover in Latin America last year was about $800 million. So, and this is a trend which has started emerging only in the last 2 decades. And Latin America contributes to India's energy and food security. We import about 10 to 15% of our global requirements of crude oil from Latin America. And Latin America has a surplus of something about 4 million barrels per day for exports. So we can count on Latin America for our strategic policy to diversify our import of crude oil from Middle East. And Latin America is a source of vegetable oil. Last year we did about $4 billion of soya oil mainly from Argentina and also from Paraguay and Brazil. India is perpetually short of vegetable oil. We import something about 12 million tons, and we are over-dependent on Indonesia and Malaysia. So South America helps us to reduce this over-dependence on these two countries and to diversify our sources of purchase. And for your make in India, you need minerals. For your electrification program, EV vehicles, you need lithium. And more than 50% of the global reserves of lithium are in this lithium triangle of Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia. So Latin America is going to be important in the long term for India's energy and food security. So now you know why the Indian business should love Latin America. The love has to be mutual. It has to be reciprocated. It can't be just unrequited love. Now the Latin Americans also have reason to love Indian market. Last year, they exported to India $26 billion. India was the 8th largest destination for Latin America's exports. The year before it was 7th largest. In 2014, India was the number 3 destination for Latin America's exports after United States and China. Today, Latin America exports more to India than to Germany or France or Spain or Italy or UK. And the Latin Americans have come investing in India, about $1 billion. I'll just give you 3 examples of success stories. You might have heard of Modern Bread. It has been bought over by this Mexican company called Grupo Bimbo. It's a Mexican multinational. Today, the largest bread maker in India is this Grupo Bimbo. They have invested over $200 million. And globally also, even in the United States, they are doing very well. Today, the 3rd largest owner of multiplexes in India is a Mexican company called Cinepolis. Again, it's a Mexican multinational. And you know who gives competition to Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola? Not any Indian company. It's a company from Peru called AJE. A-J-E. J is pronounced as A. AJE. They have a plant in Patalganga in Maharashtra, a bottling plant. And they're going to put up another one in Gurgaon. And they have a brand called Big Cola. More cola for less money, for the lower middle class. So the Latin Americans have started loving Latin America, India, seeing it as a large growing market for their exports in the long term. Well, opportunities are there, dollars are there, love is there. So now you might ask me, what is the risk there? Of course, there's always risk. The risk of doing business with Latin America is falling in love. Warning. A friend of mine who runs a pharmaceutical company called Kathleen Point in Chennai, he sent his young son to Guatemala. That's where the other Indian companies were afraid of going there because there's a lot of violence, crime in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. So he sent his son there, young guy, and as soon as he reached there, the first thing he did was falling in love with a Guatemalan girl. Married her, settled there. And today, this Kathleen Point is doing $200 million of exports of pharmaceuticals to Latin America. Most of it is to Central America. This guy is settled there. Some years back, 3 Indians, one from Coimbatore, one from Agra, one from Mumbai, they were working in a British IT company called Mysis. And they were recruited and sent to Colombia. They reached Colombia, the first thing they did was fell in love with 3 Colombian girls. Married them. And they left Mysis and they started their own company called Sophos Solutions. Sophos Solutions is in fintech. And even the Bank of Colombia has invested in their company. So they are thriving as entrepreneurs. And love is not just only one way, it's also the other way. There was a girl from Sao Paulo called Cecilia Angelon. She had gone looking for a job to London. And there she got a job as a sales assistant in a shop run by a Malhotra. And soon that Cecilia Angelon became Cecilia Malhotra. But of course, Malhotra was married, but that was his problem. So she married him, took him to Sao Paulo. And then she thought, now that I have conquered an Indian man, so let me also look at the Indian market. So she came to India. and doing those traditional ceremonies in India, they put henna. So she liked it, and when I told it to her friends, and they all liked it, she started importing henna powder from India, marketed it in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It was spectacular. But being a smart Brazilian, she stopped the import of henna powder from India. She started importing the ingredients, raw materials. She made her own brand called Surya Henna Brazil. Today the company has about $50 million of turnover. They export to all over Latin America and the United States. Guess what? They are exporting to India. Surya Henna Brazil. So there is opportunity, dollars and love. Thank you.
One item you have forgotten.